Hello and welcome to Point and Shoot Cameras with Con. Back in the day when our YouTube channel was very young and did the first steps, Becky reviewed a Nikon 28 Ti camera. Now it is time for 35 Ti with Con. So 35 Ti came out in 1993 and according to God himself, Ken Rockwell, it was a rich guy's holiday camera and cost $1,000. We work in the shop, we sell Nikon, we have access to these goodies, and I tested this camera for about a month, took a few rolls of film with it. I'm going to tell you all about it. What does TI stands for? It stands for titanium, and it is the top of the range point-and-shoot camera together with 28 Ti from Nikon. One of the main features of this camera is obviously beautiful 35mm lens on it, but also a matrix metering, which was available on the top of the range cameras, but not available on point-and-shoots. It's one of them that have it. What's interesting about this camera, as well as 28 Ti from Nikon, is the analog dial. So you watch enthusiasts really will appreciate this. So on one side, we have our distance, and on the right-hand side, we have our aperture. Camera has two modes, really. So you got a P mode, which is fully automatic. So for point-and-shoot camera, this is basically a default mode that you buy a camera for. But if you want to have a little more control, then there's an aperture priority mode where you control the aperture of the lens via the dial on top. Now, the camera is autofocus camera, but what's good about it is that it allows you to set the focus manually. So if you like to use hyperfocal distance for street photography, let's say, you can definitely do this by pressing the AF button over here and then turning the dial to the distance that you want. So you can either set it to feet or meters, whichever you prefer. The camera also has exposure compensation buttons, so if you'd like to get the extra pastel tones by overexposing your film by several stops, you can do that by plus or minus 2 stops. In terms of ISO settings, a camera will read your film automatically if it's got a DX barcode. If it doesn't have it, the base ISO is 100, so you may want to use your exposure compensation to set your film if it doesn't have a barcode. For example, you roll your film yourself. All right, by default, the camera has automatic flash. So if it's too dark, you'll get a red light in here and then it will fire. If you don't want that, there's a no flash button over here, which you press and hold and take the shot. But for example, if the camera doesn't want to fire flash and you want the flash, there's another button there that you can press as well. Look, it also has a panorama mode. Now, it's still a 35mm one shot, but in the viewfinder, camera is going to change the frame lines to a wider aspect, and then it will take the shot. So effectively, it's a black bars on top. I now have 35 for 20 years. I really enjoy using this camera. What I love about it is so portable, it's so light, I can keep it in my pocket and use it whenever I want. What I don't like about this camera, it's maybe not as fast for your street photography or capturing the decisive moment thing, just because when you start it up, it takes obviously some time for the lens to come out, and then if you need to use flash, you may need to wait for actually the flash to charge up first. But if you want to take a shot as well, it's not as fast as, let's say, would be a rangefinder or a film camera would do. So keep that in mind. It's good for snapshots. It's not as fast as the SLR or rangefinder camera would be. Now, the image quality is fantastic for the point-and-shoot camera. It is better than my Nikon L35 AF camera. While that one is really good and outperforms all the cheapest point-and-shoot, this one is probably the best point-and-shoot camera from Nikon optically. One of the things about this camera as well, it's got quite a lot of custom settings built in, and you really need to dive deep into the manual to set them up. So if you want to do this, definitely download the manual, which is available online everywhere. Now, comparing to 28 Ti, they're slightly different cameras. So 35 Ti came out earlier than 28. So 28 has additional features, such as switch instead of a button on the left of the camera. Overall, the choice between the two would depend on the focal distance that you use. If you are more accustomed to 28mm focal distance, then definitely stick to 28. 35, if 35 is your jam, 35 also will be optically slightly better than the other one. I personally prefer 35 for day-to-day carry-on, but I do shoot street light with a 28mm attached. So really depends on the focal distance you prefer. One thing to bear in mind with all point-and-shoot cameras, especially the luxury one like this, if something happens to your lens and it needs realigning, there are not many people who can actually do such repairs, and those repairs are quite expensive. So keep an eye, maybe don't drop the camera, to start with. The thing about fixed focal distance point-and-shoot cameras is there are not as many moving elements as it would be a zoom lens point-and-shoot camera. So overall, I think it's good. But yeah, if you drop it, there are people who can do this. So there's a PPP camera repairs. There's sending cameras in London, but do prepare to pay quite a lot for the repair.
We hope you found this little mini review of the 35 Ti helpful. If you did, please give us a like and a subscribe. And if there are any other cameras you'd like us to review, let us know in the comments.
If you found this video super useful, there's super thanks button as well. Hit that if you can.
Great. And if you'd like Con to do more solo videos, just kidding.